Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 271. There are many things that are popular topics when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein, but not many of those topics are as popular as his jet, dubbed the Lolita Express, which I like to call the House of Flying Horrors, and what occurred on that plane. Now, we know that the flight logs from that plane tell quite the tale. We know a lot of the people who have been on Jeffrey Epstein's plane. We know a lot of them. Not all of them. Not all of the flight logs have been released. Not all of the pilots kept flight logs, according to sources. But we know that the plane played a pivotal role in what occurred here. And it was also the scene to many crimes, according to the survivors. In tonight's episode, we're going to take a look inside of the plane and read an article from the New York Post. The headline: Inside Jeffrey Epstein's Lolita Express jet and where it is now. Author Ben Furherd. It hosted A-list celebrities, tycoons of industry, and world leaders alike. But now, Jeffrey Epstein's private jet, dubbed the Lolita Express because he allegedly used it as a flying underage sex palace, is collecting dust at a Georgia airport, the Post has learned. So, this jet that was once used to transport the movers and the shakers of the world from one spot to the next while they were with Jeffrey Epstein, this plane that was used as a location to abuse, molest, and rape trafficked girls is now sitting in a Georgia airport collecting dust. Well, I would hope that it's in good enough condition that it can also be sold off with the rest of Jeffrey Epstein's shit, so that money can all go into the compensation fund. The Boeing 727 is parked in a long-term storage area at Brunswick Golden Isles Airport in southeastern Georgia, about 70 miles north of Jacksonville, Florida, according to an aviation expert who was recently allowed aboard the infamous aircraft. So this guy was able to hop onto the old Jeffrey Epstein's Flying House of Horrors and was able to snap some pictures, get some shots, and, now he's telling the Post about what he experienced when he got to take a walk around in the now defunct aircraft. James McCloskey, a 53-year-old aviation consultant, told the Post he was given a tour of the jet in March 2020 while doing work for Scroggins Aviation, a Las Vegas-based company that buys planes and plane parts for the film industry. Well, that's interesting, because that would mean that perhaps this company, Scroggins Aviation, which is based here in Las Vegas, is looking to purchase this plane. And I think that's the sooner it gets purchased and the sooner that the money gets put into the fund, the better, in my opinion, right? I want all of his worldly possessions, all of his toys, his jets, his boats, whatever it may be. I want them all sold off, and I want all of that money going to the survivors. McCloskey snapped more than 24 photos of the plane's interior, revealing the VIP jet's velour-upholstered reclining chairs, love seats, and even the pedophile's notorious onboard bed, where he and his guests allegedly had group sex with the girls. And we know that this plane wasn't like a regular plane, right? Certainly nothing like a plane that you would get on or I would get on commercially. This plane was outfitted, and it was set up exactly how Jeffrey Epstein wanted it, so it would facilitate his behavior as he was moving from one destination to the next. Because remember, we know, according to the survivors, that this man's proclivities were beyond the pale of disgusting, and his appetite to abuse these girls was also very large. So on one of these long flights, say from Florida across the Atlantic, you don't think Jeffrey Epstein was doing whatever it is that he was doing on the planes with these girls? And the people that came with him on these planes, who went with him on these trips, I mean, really? You're going to get into a plane that looks like what this plane looked like on the inside, and you're not going to have any questions? Especially when it goes along with all of the other shit we know about Epstein, the wacky artwork, all the young girls around him. And these people are going to try and pitch us the nonsense that they had no idea what Jeffrey Epstein was. I don't know about you folks, but I am not buying it. He said the plane felt like a playground. When you get inside the aircraft, it's a playground. Everything lays out to be a bed. That was kind of creepy, McCloskey said. And there are a bunch of pictures of this inside of this article. Like usual, I will post the link to this article in the description box. And I suggest you guys go and check it out because he's right. It's like something out of a movie almost, right? This isn't the kind of plane that you would think ex-presidents would be on, business moguls. You're thinking, a nice, sleek corporate jet where you have a little bit of privacy perhaps in some sort of cubicle seating area where you can do your work, trade stocks, whatever it may be. But this is nothing like that. This is as if Snoop Dogg and, Redman and Method Man were launching the new version of Soul Plane for a party as they fly. I mean, it's that kind of plane. It's not a business plane by any means. He added that the interior design looked like something from the disco era. And that's another thing about Epstein, right? This guy had piss poor judgment when it comes to interior decorating and style. Look, I most certainly am not some sort of like style aficionado, right? But if I had the money that this dude had, I would at least have the good sense to have somebody come in and deck out my pad and make it look dope. But this guy, everything in this dude's pad looks ridiculous. His plane looked ridiculous. This disco era stuff is nonsense. But it doesn't shock me. I could see Epstein totally still with the shirt unbuttoned, showing some of that gross little chest hair, thinking he's still living in the 70s. Guy was just an absolute disgusting weirdo. You get on Epstein's airplane, and it's decorated from the 70s. I mean, you would almost think that Elvis flew on this thing because it's like velour and bright and red colors, he said. And again, this guy had zero sense of taste when it came to style or decorations. The house in New Mexico, atrocious. From the pictures that we have seen, the way it was designed on the inside, I mean, are you kidding me right now? You have more money than God himself, and that's how you design your house, huh? You spend all of that money on that big-ass ranch, that beautiful property, and then that's what you do to the inside of it? At the same time, McCloskey said he was struck because he knew some of the most influential people in the world, including former President Bill Clinton and other celebrities, had flown on the jet. Initially, I took the presence of, I'm standing on an aircraft that held royalty, presidents, heads of state, he said. The plane has been at the Georgia airport for about 5 years, McCloskey said, and currently has no engines attached. A record of its last flight shows the plane took off from West Palm Beach, then zigzagged above Florida before touching down at the Georgia airport more than 4 years ago. So he gets on this plane, right? He's looking around, taking a peek, working for Scroggins, pictures, whatever it may be. Probably sounds like a preliminary look to see if they wanted to purchase this for their use for spare parts and whatnot. So he's on there. He's getting some flicks, taking some pictures, and it hits him. This is the kind of plane that heads of state would be on, business moguls, all of these powerful people with no real seats. Everything folds down into a bed. I don't know how convenient that would be to get work done. But again, we're not talking about this being business related, are we, folks? We're not talking about this just being a quick jaunt. Oh yeah, hop a ride with me, man. We'll take a ride up to Florida, down to Florida, and you don't have to worry about the nonsense. Let's roll. It wasn't that. The people that were on this plane, when these young girls were on this plane, all have a lot of explaining to do. If you were ever on this plane with an underage girl, and that gets verified, and these girls corroborate all of that, you, my friend, have a lot of explaining to do. Because that would mean that you were present when girls were being trafficked and crimes were being committed. That is why I am so adamant that this needs to be a RICO case, because once this turns RICO, then all of those people, all of those co-conspirators can be dragged right in, kicking and screaming. The jet, which has a tail number N908JE, how cute, huh? JE at the end of the tail number for good old Uncle Jeffy's name. The guy was such a narcissist, such a disgusting example of what not to be. That was formerly registered to a Delaware company called JEGE Incorporated, but has been a deregistered aircraft since October 2019. 2 months after Epstein killed himself, allegedly, in a Manhattan jail cell, according to online records. So, before he killed himself, the jet was still up and running, ready to go, because in Epstein's mind, he truly believed he was getting off again, right? He didn't think he was going to do real jail time. And that's why another reason why I don't think he killed himself. We've heard from several different people that talked to him right before he died, and none of them said he was suicidal. So I don't believe he killed himself, and I think that he thought he was going to get out, and when he got out, things would go right back to normal. He'd get back on his jet, and he'd continue molesting, abusing, and raping girls at will with nobody there to stop him. Thankfully, that was not the case. For years, the plane has been at the center of sexual abuse allegations against Epstein. And that's why I'm reading this article tonight, because the plane has been a central figure in this case since the jump. It was one of the first pieces of evidence that everybody saw and was talking about, right? Bill Clinton, this one, that one, he was on it, she was on it, etc., etc. So it's been a big piece of evidence and a big piece of conversation when it comes to this story. And the fact that it's sitting in this Georgia airport amongst the mothballs brings joy to my heart. This plane should be sold and it should be pieced off. I mean, I don't know who would ever buy this plane and fly in it. I most certainly could never do that. Talk about a disgusting taste in your mouth every time you look at this plane. So hopefully Scroggins is going to do what they're talking about, and maybe they're going to buy it or someone else is going to buy it and piece it off. But I'll tell you what, all of these people on this plane, all of the places this plane went and the logs that tell the story are really going to come back and haunt a lot of these people, in my opinion. The company that owned the jet, JEGE Incorporated, is named in several lawsuits by anonymous Epstein accusers who claim the plane facilitated their sex trafficking by the multimillionaire pedophile. And that's 100%, right? He was using this plane to transport them, at the very least, across state lines, and we know across international lines as well. So, the international crimes, don't you think Interpol should get involved in that? I mean, I know France is dragging their feet, and obviously they don't give a hell about what happened to these girls in France, or to their own citizens for that matter. But shouldn't Interpol get involved in this, and perhaps maybe bring their own charges and have a case against Maxwell as well? I mean, you would think every single country, every single organization that's in charge of some sort of law enforcement that got the okie doke pulled on them, that got finessed by Epstein and Maxwell, would be looking to make it right. But still, we hear nothing from Interpol, and the authorities in France might as well not even exist at this point. Photos previously obtained by the Post show Clinton along with accused perv Kevin Spacey and comedian Chris Tucker rode on the jet during a trip to Africa in 2002. Now, this trip to Africa, there was nobody has ever alleged that anything gross took place on this trip, right? Now, does that mean that nothing did take place? No, we weren't there. I don't know. Right? None of us know. But as far as the witnesses are concerned, as in this trip, nothing crazy took place on that plane. So it wasn't like old Smoke Dog was on the plane doing crazy stuff. And for that matter, Kevin Spacey's nasty ass wasn't either. Now, when the plane landed and they all went to their hotel rooms, God only knows what these sick bastards do or did. But the thing that sticks out to me is this. What it does is it adds more context, right? More meat to the bone. More smoke to the fire. Bill Clinton was on this plane so many times, it's not even funny. And all of these other rich and famous and powerful people who deny the fact that they were on the plane, that they were close to Epstein, they better get out in front of this stuff, because the truth is definitely coming. And when it comes and it smashes into these people who have been evasive, and they get absolutely piled on by the general public and by the media, they're going to have nobody to blame but themselves. Now is the time to get out in front of this shit. If you were on this plane, you were on this flight log, and you have something to share, now is the time. Virginia Roberts, who claims she was one of Epstein's sex slaves, was aboard the plane at the same time as the United Kingdom's Prince Andrew, according to a court deposition unsealed soon after Epstein's death. And again, the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family attempting to demean Virginia and act like she's the liar here is one of the most laughable things I have ever come across in my life. There is so much evidence putting Virginia next to Prince Andrew, and Andrew won't even concede the fact that he has ever met her. So, if this man was telling the truth, don't you think he would be truthful about things? Ghislaine Maxwell, who is awaiting trial on charges she procured underage girls for Epstein to abuse, allegedly took part in sexual romps aboard his planes, according to a newly unsealed deposition by Roberts. And we know that's the case. We've heard those rumors, and we've heard direct accounts from people who were on those planes and who were around these people that this shit occurred. This isn't just some made-up story. This isn't some, oh, well, let's make pretend this happens type of deal. These disgusting monsters were using this plane to abuse these girls on their way to whatever destination it was that they were going. And then once they got there, they continued this abuse. In the testimony, Roberts detailed constant orgies at Epstein's private Caribbean island. She added that she had sex with Maxwell all over the globe and in the air. If we're going to talk about other countries, we've got to talk about international travel space or plane space or whatever you want to call it, Roberts told an attorney in 2016 when asked where she had sex with Maxwell. It happened all the time on the plane, she said. So she was in international airspace, and this was occurring in international airspace, right? So again, they're going to some foreign country with trafficked girls. How is that not cause for Interpol to get involved? How is that not cause for Interpol to step in and investigate what the deal is here? But again, we have not seen any of that. Thankfully, finally, after decades of sitting around with their thumb up their ass, the American authorities have stepped up, made the arrest of Ghislaine Maxwell, and have said they're going after the rest of these co-conspirators. I hope that's exactly what they're doing. I would think that is what they're doing. But as always, I remain skeptical. Until it's in the palm of my hand and I can squeeze it, I do not truly have it. And that's the same way I feel in this case. Until these other co-conspirators are rounded up, arrested, and all charged with RICO, me, my beard, and my fat yap will be here on the podcast with you, demanding justice. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at Bobbycapucci at protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI at protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY underscore CAPUCCI. The link that goes with this article is in the description box, and you definitely want to check it out. There's pictures of inside of the plane. You'll see how goofy it looks. Looks like something from boogie nights or some shit. Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. All right, folks, until tomorrow, I hope you all had a great weekend, and I hope that you're all ready for Monday.